Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope your week is going well. Back for another edition of Meteorology Lab, and we've got a bit of clouds. The moisture is on its way north, and there's a look at what we have outside right now. Starting to get dark, and we're going to see some of that moisture there on the 850 millibar chart. Hello, I'm Tim Vasquez, and let's start the analysis package for this evening. And just to make things a little bit interesting, I haven't looked at any weather data today. I know there's a little bit of activity up in the Midwest. So I'm going to kind of show you how this works when we sit down, like if a forecaster comes on shift and they need to get up to speed. This is how we go about doing that. First thing you can do, take a quick glance at the surface chart. And we see up in the Midwest, we've got a cyclonic flow indicating low pressure in Minnesota. So we're dealing with some sort of surface low, and we can see that the temperatures are quite different from one side to the other. We've got 50s in South Dakota, 67 in Minneapolis there, and a very warm 81 in Chicago. And let me see if I can find the warmest temperature there on the Midwest. And I think that's going to be 82 here. And I think that's Springfield, or I think Peoria is up north. I'm not too sure what station that is, but 83 in St. Louis. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is go to the 850 millibar chart. Okay, let's see here, or go to the 250 millibar chart. This is the hemispheric plot, and this shows conditions up at about 34,000 feet. And we see the polar front jet from the middle of the Pacific comes on shore in Oregon, and then goes down to Albuquerque, right down to Texas, and then straight up to the north into the Dakotas. So we've got ridging over the East Coast. We're going to be seeing warm weather today in the Great Lakes all the way down to the eastern U.S. And then we've got a lot of weather action on the Great Plains tonight due to this very strong trough. We're going to have cool conditions in the northern Rockies underneath that trough. The whole reason that trough is right there is because of cold air in the lower and mid levels. So when you have very low or very high density of the air, as you go higher and higher in the atmosphere, you're going to have high pressures, pressures deflecting downwards relative to the ground. So aloft you would find lower pressures and lower heights. Okay, so let's see here. Strongest part of the trough is in Oklahoma. So just downstream from that, we're going to find a lot of the stronger dynamics and a lot of organized storms out ahead of that. And there's a closer look at that trough this morning. You can't really pick out short waves on the 250 millibar chart. You're kind of limited to long waves, so kind of like that right there. But I see some very sharp deflection right there. Okay. Strongest winds look to be 90 knots over Fort Worth and Oklahoma City. And I actually see 105 up there in Aberdeen. And you can see the telltale diffluence. A lot of older severe weather texts talk about that diffluence. But the problem with diffluence is there's usually weaker winds downstream. So you have speed convergence there, which is canceling out the diffluence. However, I don't know, I see very strong winds here in North Dakota or South Dakota. So when you go from here to here, it looks like a little bit of speed divergence. So we may actually have some very strong divergence aloft in this case. And divergence aloft, that's going to remove mass, kind of like what you see right here. So when that's happening in the top part of the troposphere, you're going to have a response down in the lower levels where air comes inward and then upward to fill the void. So this is actually supporting that low pressure area in Minnesota. There's the 700 millibar chart, and this shows a little bit of the cap. So I'm looking at temperatures here, and the highest temperatures, it's going to be 11 degrees right there in Jackson, Mississippi. And I think I see 10 right there around Paducah. So a little bit of capping, probably in the lower Mississippi Valley, but most of the capping has been eroded by that strong jet action from Minnesota all the way up to the Great Lakes. 700 millibar is a very good level to find shortwaves. And I don't really see any shortwaves in here at first glance. It looks very channeled. Diagnostics, however, would tend to show that. And let me show that to you real quick. There's the 500 millibar heights and vorticity. And let me set that on the current time. Okay, so that's going to be the current chart right there. What we had earlier was back around 12Z. That was the chart that you saw earlier. So now we see the patterns here moving northeast a little bit, and we arrive at this right here. So low directly over Minnesota there, one good shortwave over Wisconsin, and looks like maybe another shortwave over Minnesota. So looking at 18Z earlier today, it was a little bit further south. So this whole area here has been undergoing a lot of lift. All right, this brings us to the current weather, and GO 16 is a good source for that current weather. So we can see the thunderstorm action here in eastern Iowa. And then further to the east, I don't know if it's picking this up. Let me see here. There we go. That's a little bit better. Looks like a couple of lines of storms here. There's one up in Wisconsin in close proximity to that warm air over the Milwaukee and Chicago area. And then this other line here, this is the main area of forcing coming in from the southwest. So you can see those distinct overshooting tops right in that area. And let's zoom that out a little bit. Again, we're looking at the Marshall Space Flight Center from NASA. This is one of the first good sources of GO 16 data. The Katchelman Vetter site is one we had been using, and this is another source of data here. So you can see this first line out ahead of the main line. So I would expect to see some severe weather associated with this. And then we have more cell competition in this area, and I would expect a little bit less severe weather there. And then the main upper level low, you can definitely see that over northern Iowa. So right there you would tend to find a lot of the cold core thunderstorm activity. Here's the thickness and sea level pressure. This is for 18Z, so let me grab the current chart. thickness is going to summarize a lot of the temperature and density in the lower and middle part of the atmosphere. So this is good for finding fronts. There's our low right there in the Minneapolis area. And these are the gradients associated with the surface fronts. So at first glance, I think maybe a front kind of like that. Definite gradient right here in Colorado and Utah. So that's supporting a front down in the Phoenix and Albuquerque, Flagstaff area. This is an area of potential frontogenesis. And then the other area out in the Great Lakes, looking like this. Couple of waves. There's one right here over the Marquette area, another over the Minneapolis area, and then another. This is more of a heat low down in the Lamar, Colorado area. And then we have a fourth one up in the Montreal area. And from there, very distinct warm front, and you see the gradient out ahead of it right there. So it looks like a very warm day there in Maine. Southwesterly flow coming up in that area just like that. Okay, the Maine Code Pool, that is over Baffin Island. And let's take a look up there at snow cover. This is kind of a first. It's kind of interesting looking at where the snowpack is because this corresponds to the generation of polar air. So the snow line looks like it extends from just north of Yellowknife down to south of Churchill and then across northern Quebec. So that snow area is shrinking. The depth on that is about 30 to 40 centimeters. And I guess that's about 9 to 10 inches. So a little bit of snow hanging on up there and on the north slopes of Alaska right there. Okay, so that's just a gee whiz thing. Doesn't really factor too much into the current forecast. Okay, let's look at the storms. I've got the Minneapolis NEXRAD up. Okay, so we're looking at what looks like some fairly weak thunderstorm activity. There are some warnings on it, but for the most part it looks very multicellular and a lot of clusters here. And one looks like it's just come through the Minneapolis area right there. So the main threat there would just be heavy rain and maybe a little bit of small hail. And there you go right there. Storms moving northeast at this time. Then further down the line, remember this is the main line associated with the main upper level forcing. Not much going on, and then we get out of the range of the radar. And then up in central Wisconsin, these are the storms that I would probably be looking for severe weather from. Those don't look too bad right now. A few severe warnings on these cells here. And let's go to the SPC radar. We'll go to their mesoanalysis site. And we can definitely see that low right there in northern Iowa. Looks like a little bit of a line from Indianapolis down to about Paducah, but it's got kind of an elevated look and looks a little bit capped. Might have a little bit of a cap overlying that area. We saw that on the 700 millibar chart. So probably the best severe weather potential is going to be in the Quad Cities area, I would think. That's in close proximity to the warm air mass. So let me switch the radar down to that region. I got a tornado warning there for Davenport, so let's bring that up. And while we're waiting on that, let me take a look at the chat here. Okay. Andrew, first one in here. Windy there in Peoria. And what did we see in Peoria? I saw hot temperatures. That's what it was. 83 there. Ryan Myers and Alex Front, Fun with Tech. Ron Chalfant, Kevin McKinney, Dubuque, Iowa, got hit with some high winds about an hour ago. Ahmed checking in here from Saudi Arabia. Jumping Flash, that's a new name there. Eddie W., evening all active day of chasing here in Iowa. Storm motions 55 to 70 miles an hour. Wow. Alexi Pink checking in, and Tom J. Robert Terrell in Lubbock. Not much going on there. Mark Sanchez. And let me skip down here real quick. 91 degrees in southern Jersey. So that's going to be underneath that ridge there. Dew points near 68. Brett Dean and Burl H. Fred Reamer up in North Dakota. Andrew's asking about my music. I've got a music library here, just some royalty-free music. And I don't know, I can probably show you a little bit of that real quick. This is my video page here, and underneath the... Yeah, I've got this directory here. Yeah, this is all the music that I use for the time-lapse and the openings. So, you've probably heard this one here. So, I'm trying to get a little bit of jazz in this library. There's a lot of acoustic guitar. I don't really like that too much. I like the blues and jazz stuff. Okay, let's check out what's going on here in... Wow, we're still downloading from Quad Cities. I wonder what's going on. Let me restart this real quick. And then we'll look at some other products while that's going on. So I'm using a GR Level 2 Analyst. So there you go. That's from Gibson Ridge Software. Mike Gibson, he's a great guy there. Yeah, definitely support his software there, GR Lit 2 Analyst. It's a little bit pricey, but there are cheaper versions of the software on there. Okay, let me get the download started up here. And then we'll check back on that in a little bit. Okay, we can take a look at the plots. So this is telling us what's going on right there. Got a little bit of, let's see, moisture is not all that great. You can see the dew points here, average about 60. And the main moisture ridge running about like this right here. And when you get into Wisconsin, 50s dew points. So you're going to have storms that are a little bit more elevated. Temperature dew point spread about 25 degrees there. But we do have a little bit of a bow echo structure. Dry air can be beneficial for gusty outflowish storms, and that's probably what we have going on right there at this time. Cold front is going to be looking something like this here. Taking a bit of a approximation there. I think it's going to be going like that, maybe up to a warm front up in Kansas. So there you go. And then the main upper level low is going to be right there in northern Iowa. You can see a few cold core thunderstorms in that area. Okay, so our radar has come up from Davenport, and we'll zoom that in, and we can see this is the tail end of all the action. So for a tail end, this is the main area of force, the main area of storms associated with the upper level forcing, and then we consider this the tail end or tail end Charlie. So we got one isolated cell right here in Cambridge County, Illinois, just southeast of Davenport, and we'll check out the storm right here. This has kind of a supercellular look at this time, somewhere between multicellular and supercell. And this is the base velocity, but the storms are moving fast, so it's very important to subtract out that motion. That'll give us storm relative instead of ground relative motion. Okay. So let me see what we got here for storm motion. Okay, there's the vector from 222 degrees at 35 knots. And there's what we got. This is the storm relative velocity. And I don't know, I don't see anything that looks tornadic at this time. There's definitely some rotation in there. And I'll drop a dot where I see that broad scale rotation. Looks like maybe about 60-70 knots of broad shear right in this area right here. So definitely embedded here. So let's see, where are they getting that tornado signature? Sometimes you have to go back to the earlier frames, and yeah, there's a little bit of something here that looks suspect. We got to keep in mind the radar is right here. I see what looks like outbound velocities. So you see down here, we're actually right here. This is the readout of velocity, and I see about 35 knots outbound versus 25 inbound towards the radar. Negative is always toward the radar. So there you go, a little bit of cyclonic rotation, and I'm going to put a dot right there. This was about 10 minutes ago. So it looks like something was embedded right in this area. And we were looking at about 50 to 60 knots of rotation. Let's check out spectrum width and see if that shows anything. Yeah, looks like maybe a little bit of a correlation. And let's see what happens to that when we forward that. Moves northeast and kind of breaks up. Yeah, definitely a very fast-moving pattern. And there's what we got right now. I don't see anything too serious here. The higher reflectivities look like they're in the center of the storm. Don't see any strong reflectivity gradients. And the shear doesn't look all that strong. Okay. Further down the line, these look elevated. Don't see much shear in those. And then closer to the Davenport area, we'll take a quick look at these cells. Don't see any high magnitudes on the velocity here. So the main risk with these would be small hail. Okay. So there's what we got, and let me take a look at the chat here. What software do I use to capture the screen? I use Open Broadcaster. Ryan says, Wisconsin took a heavy hit with the severe weather in the last 24 hours. Big supercells. Sarah Wood watching the severe weather to her west. Is there a sounding from southeast Wisconsin from Greg Schultz? Maybe. We can take a quick look here. think Davenport is about as close as we'll be able to get to that. So a little bit south of there, and there's the sounding this morning from Davenport. So you can see that we did have some moisture, a lot of 50s dew points. And the column had a little bit of steep lapse rates in the mid-levels right there. Okay, let's see if we have a newer sounding. Okay, big change there. Looks a lot different, doesn't it? See, you can see the effect of the colder air, the lift that we had associated with that jet stream caused adiabatic cooling in the upper part of the atmosphere. So that steepened the lapse rate quite a bit. We got a little bit of an elevated layer here that has steep lapse rate, and down below that we can see a little bit better moisture in the low levels. So yeah, if we lift that, we do get some decent cape. This is probably about 2,000 cape or so. Definitely removed some of the capping there. So yeah, that's probably going to be the best sounding we can get. However, the other alternative is you can just go to the models. And probably for doing a forecast sounding, I would use the NAM model. That would be the best one to use. It's a little bit more smoothed out, but it does keep a lot of the key mesoscale details. So let me grab that right here. Okay, so this is the NAM model for this is the sector for the Midwest right here. Okay, so you can see it shows the cells. This is the tail end Charlie area. And what we'll do is we'll click on this area right here, north of Rockford, and this will show us an approximation of the sounding for that area right now. Okay, so we're showing a pretty steep lapse rate there. Looks like that cap in the mid-levels, very weak cap, has been eliminated also, and pretty good moisture in the low levels right there. And there's the hodograph right there, showing some very decent helicity from 0 through 1 kilometer. So we definitely got some storm relative helicity there that would support maybe some isolated scattered tornadoes. So let's take a look at the trend on the high resolution rapid refresh. So here's the tail end area that we were watching. The model did try to break out some activity. Let's see if we have that. We have to verify these models to see how accurate they are. And you can see there's no activity in central Illinois. Okay, so these cells don't exist. So a little bit of an error there, but the general trend on this other area just moves it up into the Wisconsin area. So maybe some storms coming through the Milwaukee area in a couple of hours. And then those will move into Michigan later tonight. And you can see there's a definite weakening trend during the evening. So that's going to be about it for the weather picture there, and after that we'll just get some frontal passage as the main synoptic scale system comes through. Okay. We'll take a quick look up at the line at La Crosse, and let me take a look at the chat here. Have Dorothy Tornado and Mark Sanchez. Ryan says western fringes of Illinois really under the gun right now. Ryan Toomies says the GO 16 imagery really shows the great storm top details. Yeah, there's GO 16 right there. And when we get later in the evening, we pick out more of the shadowing because the sun is way over here to the west. And we can pick out some of the overshooting tops. And these are the storms on the tail end right around the Davenport area. And those are the ones that will be moving into the Milwaukee area later this evening. Okay, La Crosse is still downloading, and let's see here. Juggalo for Life uses GR Level 2 and Level 3. Self-taught. Alex asks, do I have a 1050? What is a 1050? Sorry, I'm a little bit out of the loop here. Jumping Flash says your 2.5-hour live show of the explosive tornado coverage provided real-time application of the physics dynamics learned in school. Yeah, if you go to my channel, youtube.com/TimWXX. If you check out the video section, you'll find a video from last night, the extended coverage in western Oklahoma as that multi-vortex tornado there took place. So you can put that on and watch that unfold. Greg says 1 kill, 25 injured in yesterday's tornado in Wisconsin. Okay. Greg Schultz there is happy with a weakening trend for southeast Wisconsin. Yeah, this line here will be moving through very quickly, so it will just be a very brief window for severe weather. Anyway, GR Level 2 is not loading, so we'll just kind of skip that for now. And we'll head into the forecast for this evening. So we're going to move to the GFS, and this is a synoptic scale model. And this will give us the forecast over the next few days. And I'm concerned about severe weather potential. Well, not really concerned, but I want to check that out. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the dew points. So let me load that up too. We're going to check that out also. My internet here is not very good. I'm on 10 megabit per second internet, and I'm talking about getting symmetric internet. That would really speed things up, so Patreon donations would be helpful. Anyway, yeah, this is the Patreon thing. If you want to send a few bucks, we've only got 12 donors, but if you want to do that, it would be definitely appreciated. So patreon.com/MetLab. Anyway, let's see what's going on over the next several days in terms of chase activity. Okay, here's our current chart showing the weather system up in Minnesota. Okay, so we got a few cells out ahead of the line right here, and we can see that the moisture axis runs from about Arkansas up to the Illinois area. And you can see the you can see the lack of higher dew points in this area right here. We've got some 60s dew points, but the richer moisture is still stuck way down here. Okay, so we'll move that forward to tomorrow. For tomorrow's webcast, you can see things definitely refocus in this area here. The Great Lakes system moves off into Quebec, and we end up with a front from about St. Louis back through Kansas, through the Great Bend area to Dodge City, out to Lamar, Colorado. And remember, we had a frontal gradient right here, so I'm going to draw a bit of a front extending back like that. So we got to keep that in mind. That could be some potential action later this week. Okay, dry line, very easy to pick out right here. So that'll extend from about Dodge City south to Childress and Abilene tomorrow evening. Moisture axis running like this. And this is telling me that the best potential for severe weather, probably looking at probably the intersection between the moisture axis and the warm front. That would be one possible area. So right here around Wichita. Also upslope is a possibility right here around Garden City to Burlington. So some of that moisture may work even further west than the models are showing. That's always a possibility. So possible chase action right there. And also along the dry line, we see some convergence between Amarillo and Woodward. So I think there may be some potential around Woodward down to about Wellington and Shamrock. Okay, and let's take a look at what SPC is showing. See what their Day 2 outlook has. Okay, convective outlook for tomorrow. So I haven't looked at their outlook yet. They're focusing more on the dry line, kind of in between those two areas that I painted out. But both areas will have potential. Both are in the moderate risk there. So let's take a look at that again. Okay, there's tomorrow evening right there. Keep in mind that the warm front is right here. The best storm relative helicity is going to be just north of that warm front. So we're talking about this area right here. That's going to have the best helicity tomorrow night or tomorrow evening. So slightly east winds. And I think some of the tornadoes will be up in that area. Here, around Dodge City, Pratt, down to Woodward, not so much good helicity. If we get a mesolow developing in that area, you know, that could change that. But for now, I think we're mostly looking at dry line action, and large hail would be the main threat, I think, in that area. But definitely a chase day tomorrow. If you're a chaser, this is a day I would definitely be out on. Okay, so we'll run forward to Friday evening, and we've got another chase day in effect. Main synoptic scale low over northern Kansas, there near Salina. Cold front extending back to Albuquerque, and warm front through Kansas City to St. Louis like that. And dry line extending south from Salina down to Altus and down to San Angelo like that. Best severe weather potential. See the backed winds right here. I would probably be looking right there around just north of Kansas City to St. Joseph, Emporia, Emporia? No, Emporia is to the south. Concordia, that's the one right up here. So moisture axis running kind of like that through the Kansas City area where that intersects the warm front. That will have potential also. So pretty much everything from here to here will have some enhanced potential, I think, tomorrow evening. And then the dry line may have some storms along that also. The best convergence along that will probably have the best possibility for initiation. So we're talking about Wichita down to Medicine Lodge. And we may see a few cells go up further down the line around Altus and down to Vernon. So we'll keep that in mind also. Okay, let's see what the Weather Service is going for. Not the Weather Service, Storm Prediction Center. Check out their Day 3 outlook. Let's see, am I reading that right? They've got that pretty far south. Valid 19 through 12Z. That's Friday's forecast there. They've got that a lot further south, so bit of a disagreement. I'm not too sure about that. If the GFS actually does verify, you're definitely looking at northern Kansas for Friday. So possibly either there's been a change in the model data or they're seeing some other detail. Maybe they disagree with the model. I think it may be that the models have changed a little bit. Okay. So there's Friday evening. Then we'll go up to Saturday. Saturday's forecast looks like this. Looks like things shift to Illinois and Wisconsin right there. Cold front will be extending down like that along the Interstate 44 corridor down Oklahoma City. Dry line active once again from Oklahoma City down to Abilene. And then the warm front looks like that's down towards Toledo and Pittsburgh. Looks like a little bit of deterioration of the moisture field. You can see the stronger 70s dew points are still a little bit far to the south. So maybe we've had some lines of overnight convection maybe moving through this area here. That could be what's happening there. But in any case, I think we will have enough lift for thunderstorms from Wisconsin all the way down to the Quad Cities, and then enhanced potential, I think probably around Dallas-Fort Worth right there. Look at the low-level flow. We've got southeasterly winds impinging on the front right in this area. So assuming that we don't have too much capping, I think we're looking at storms from about the southeast Oklahoma area down to Dallas-Fort Worth and down to about Stephenville. Okay, yeah, so I am going to be running the hotline. I've got one customer out. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Chase hotline. That was a service that I used to run back in the years, 10 to 15 years ago. People would call up on their cell phone and ask where the weather is, where the targets are. There's been a big change since then because mobile data is everywhere, and so people tend to use that. But I've still got a few customers using the service. If you are going to be chasing and want to use that, I will tell you that the cost of that runs like $100 a day. But if you're game for that, just send me an email to tim.vasquez@weathergraphics.com and I will set you up. Otherwise, you can use the evening forecasts. And I will tell you where the targets will be the next day, like I'm doing right now. Okay, for Sunday, cold front moving through the Ohio Valley down to Alabama and Louisiana right there, driven by this high pressure right here. So you see the cold air advection kind of pushing that front to the east. Don't see a very well-defined moisture axis. Looks like most of the low-level flow is kind of heading this way. And that's because we don't have a very well-developed low-pressure area. We've got just kind of an inverted trough down to the south. But you can see we've mostly got like a little bit of a ridge in here. And then kind of a weak low-pressure area up in Ontario. So a little bit of pathetic moisture return up to that area. Probably some overnight convection degrading that area. But there will probably be a few storms up in the Ohio area. Okay, for Monday, when we do the Chase Hotline, or when, that, and when we do the forecast online here on YouTube, moisture return getting started once again in Texas and Oklahoma. Let's see what kind of pattern we've got. We've got high pressure over Arkansas. Return flow coming northward. We've got cyclogenesis out in the panhandles. A new front coming down southward like this. So, what does that tell us? Dry line not very well developed. Probably got a little bit of thunderstorm potential, maybe around Midland right here where we got this moisture flow. And then maybe a little bit of storm potential in Kansas right here where the moisture flow comes up and meets that boundary. Okay, then moving on to Tuesday. Got a pretty good front coming southward. The return flow of moisture hits the front here in Texas. So probably a lot of storms from DFW down to San Angelo, Central Texas, and that will probably be the main area on that date, midweek. Then Wednesday, that front moves down to the Gulf. So things will be pretty much shut down. I think that's going to be a down day for chasing. Thursday, we see return flow coming up to Texas and Oklahoma. So it looks like more storms in this area right there. For Friday next week, good moisture coming northward, hitting this boundary right here, dry line around the Abilene area southward. So probably the best chase potential is going to be in the Abilene area on Friday next week. Then for Saturday, cold front moves to the south, so Texas, some scattered potential for chasing. Down day on Sunday. Look at that cold air come southward. Wow. Sweeping out the moisture right there. Big old synoptic scale dustbuster. Okay, return flow pretty much shut down. A little bit of, actually, see this right here? See this moisture appearing? That's a little bit of evapotranspiration from the cornfields right in this area here, adding a little bit of moisture in that area. So probably a little bit of storm potential getting started up around May 31st and June 1st, and then we get to the end of the run, and that's all I got right there. All right, guys, let me take a look at the chat, see what's going on here. The chat group, I need to head in there and check that out. Thanks for letting me know. Mark Sanchez had an excellent chase day in Dodge City last year, May 24th. Kevin McKinney hoping his endless Windows update will be completed in time for tomorrow's storms. And Alexi asking if I could send that info so I can post it to the Facebook group. Okay, I'll log into Facebook and check that out. Let me see what you're asking for here. I don't know what kind of info you need here. I'll get on Facebook and check that out. So I'm probably a little bit behind on a lot of my social media. Anyway, thanks for watching the Meteorology Lab, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.